Greetings, campers, and welcome. I'm Scott Walker, Executive Director of the Canadian Artists Network, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the latest in our Tell Us webinar series, Financial Wellness for Seniors. It's a pleasure to welcome artists from right across Canada today to our webinar. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we live, work, travel, and create on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples who have cared for this land, now called Canada, since time immemorial. We acknowledge this as part of our covenant with all Indigenous nations to share, respect, and protect the land in the spirit of peace and friendship, and to honor the future generations of all our nations. So the other day, my wife and I were sitting talking, and the phone rang. And we decided, since we didn't recognize the number and we were both in the room, we put it on speakerphone and we heard somebody saying, "Hi, it's your favorite grandson. I'm in big trouble and I need some money." And we automatically went, "Oh my God, we've got to help. We've got to do what grandparents do. Wait a minute, we don't have any grandchildren." And as soon as we mentioned that, he was gone. He bailed, and he never calls, he never writes. Some time ago, a well-known Canadian author wrote about being scammed. She was suckered into transferring several thousands of dollars by someone claiming to be investigating bank fraud. And there's even a movie now out, which is getting huge rave reviews. It's called Thelma, and it's about this very topic. They're out there, and they often seem to be targeting our age group. We're going to find out more about what we can do to protect ourselves. I'm sure there are questions that will occur to you as you're listening to our expert today. Please put your questions in the Q&A box, and please keep them as brief as possible. So let's get to it. Our special guest is the branch manager for Creative Arts Financial, providing banking for the arts and entertainment industry. He's been looking after CAN's banking needs for the past 3 years or so. He's a veteran of the financial service industry. Please welcome Nick Eddy.
Thank you, Scott, and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. So it's a pleasure to be here today to speak to you about the important topic of financial wellness for seniors. The scenario that Scott just gave us is a perfect example of one of the instances we're seeing a lot in society nowadays with fraud and with all of these nefarious players in the market trying to get their hands on your hard-earned money. So today, the session that I'm going to run, it's mostly a financial wellness session, but I'd also like to, time permitting, cover some of the fraud topics and the fraud examples that we've been seeing as well in the industry, so that we get the best of both worlds, so to speak. So I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. So, as Scott mentioned, my name is Nick Eddy. I'm the branch manager at Creative Arts Financial, located in Toronto, Canada. Toronto, Ontario, I should say, not Canada. Division of First Ontario, and we think about you differently than the banks do. We were created by artists for artists, and we understand the industry and the people in it. We're passionate about helping our members both plan for the future to achieve financial goals, as well as sharing our tips, tricks, tactics when it comes to financial literacy. So today I'm going to keep this fairly high level. That being said, if you do have specific questions, as Scott mentioned, please drop it into the Q&A, and I'm happy to take questions throughout the session, but I don't have access really to the Q&A chat, so I'll get to those towards the end. All right, so a little bit about me. I've been in the financial services for 20 years, both in Canada and abroad. I don't know if that would define me as a veteran, but I've got a few decades under my belt. I did grow up in Australia, in case the accent didn't give it away. No, I'm not English, although I did live in London, England for a couple of years before I moved to Toronto with my now young family, and I call Toronto home. My background is in holistic financial planning, short, medium, long-term, tax minimization, all those sorts of little things that we've got going on. my passion is on education and helping members, or anyone really who has an ear to listen to me for a little while, to see if I can just share that one tidbit of knowledge or that one little aha moment to help you for your future. In my spare time, my creative outlet, I'm a woodworker. I like traveling and pretty much gardening. So creating vegetables in the garden. Just before I go too much further, most of everything that I'm going to be discussing today, it's general in nature. And well, everything I'm going to be discussing today, I should say, is general in nature and should not be construed as individual or personalized advice. Each person is an individual, so I encourage you to contact your trusted financial partner to discuss your individual financial needs. If you're not sure who to reach out to, my contact details are provided at the end of the session, as well as I just saw Scott share the slides and the overview with you. So today, what we're going to learn about is financial abuse. Who does it? What is it? And why? We've called it advanced planning tools, but this is more of a legacy planning or a future estate planning scenario. Just it's a topic that no one really enjoys talking about. It's something that is going to happen. So we're just trying to help provide some oversight or some guidance there, where you can make things that little bit easier for the next generations and your family. Just give you some few resources at the end, a few links that you can look at, and a few other things. So, what is financial abuse? Financial abuse is when someone tries to take control over your money or property for their benefit without your consent. All right. So someone could be anyone, could be friend or family member, could be some random that's knocking on your door, could be someone who is phoning you up to try and get you to pay for their police charge, like Scott just said, for a grandchild that you may or may not have. And those nefarious people, those, I don't want to call them bad actors because there's no such thing, but those people, we'll call them, they have often done a lot of research. Things like if you have a background, they use terms that you use as part of that family unit, and nona, those sorts of terms, or nanny, granny. My kids call my mother Marty. Whatever term there is, they've often looked into that. So it's really plausible and really believable. Let's touch on that later. So the first true or false, and I try and encourage audience participation if you're comfortable in doing so, is financial abusers of seniors are often strangers to their victims. I think I just gave you away the answer in my preamble there, but who would like to have a go at that? Actually, I don't know if you can because the chat's not on. Yes, it is. Please either drop it in the chat or yeah. Okay.
Nick, it may be that, some people are responding.
Yep, we're good.
Good.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, so for everyone who has answered false, which is everyone that I'm seeing, the answer is false. All right. They are not typically strangers to the victim. They are known caregivers, neighbors, distant relatives. They are usually known. So who might abuse trust? There's a couple of examples here. This is not exhaustive, not all inclusive, but a spouse may, an adult child may, a grandchild may, other family members, caregiver, friend, neighbor, the random person that walks up to your door and says, "Hey, I want to clean up your front yard for some ridiculous amount of money," and something that sounds way too good to be true. Next thing you know, things start getting broken, and that just snowballs. Door-to-door services that are offered. I'm currently in the city of Toronto, and I'm hearing all of these things all the time where contractors just come up and knock on doors. offering to do work, and they can start immediately. They've got a crew in the area because they're helping someone else. That, I'm going to say 9.5 or 9.9 times out of 10, that's a fraud. And that work seems to exacerbate and snowball, that ends up costing you more than otherwise. So that could be an example of financial abuse. So why do financial abusers target seniors? Well, first scenario there is the unfortunate eventuality that seniors may not live to follow through on any legal action. And if legal action is commenced, often it could take years to be resolved, to investigate, to charge, to go through the court system. And unfortunately, that's it's the cold hard fact there. It may go a bit quicker if it's clean cut, but at the same time, that could be the case. They may be unsophisticated about financial matters. Everyone back in the day used to know everyone, and people were out to help each other and things like that. And certain things that you hear nowadays, it's a lot. There's a lot of new technology, new way of doing things. I remember when I first had to work with my in-laws about e-transfers and what they are and how to receive them, and what not to click on in certain emails and links and things like that. Like everything is changing. This world is changing. So the word unsophisticated is probably not the best term to use in the content. It's just unknown, and that's why we like to provide these literacy sessions, just so that we can help any new terms, anything that we see going on in the industry, and in the greater population. As well as if you've been in your home 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, sometimes even 60 years, and you've not really been keeping up to date with what's going on, you may not realize the actual value of the home or the property that you're living in, whether you rent or own. So there's some of those things. It's like, it's your home, it's where you've been living, but maybe that place is significantly increased in value. And fraudsters look out for things like that. They look for properties that seemingly are in original condition and seem to have had the one owner for a lengthy period of time. So they can then go and perpetuate these tactics where they, remortgage without the owner knowing. I've seen that happen, and they need a whole crew to do that. So just be cognizant of that. In the chat, there are a few other great examples. Memory impairment is one. I'd be lying if I didn't say I suffered from memory impairment from time to time as well. So it does happen, unfortunately, and it's one of those things. I like to write things down, but that's exactly right. Maybe the abuser has contacted the senior, and next thing you know, they don't actually remember what they've signed, who they've signed it with. There's a contract going on there, and it only comes to eventuality in the future. The other one, seniors may not keep records of contracts, payments, agreements. Most things used to be done with a shake of a hand and a verbal contract, and your word is your bond. And I can't profess to know what it's like fully, but it used to be where I came from. I'm from Tasmania, a little town in Tasmania. You would know someone, and a handshake is as good as gold, because it's such a small community that it carried weight. So that's that example. Now, we've just spoken about the memory impairment or mental capacity. Everyone legally has mental capacity. It's a right until established otherwise. So let me just dig into that a little bit. Is that unless a professional has completed a full assessment, a full checkup, a full whatever they do. I'm not in the medical profession, but a full assessment. Everyone legally has a full mental capacity. Sometimes, however, when mental capacity diminishes, there can be an assessment ordered by the courts for that individual. I'll use my my wife's aunt, as an example. Unfortunately, she is suffering from Alzheimer's, and it really came on really quickly. No one recognized the signs. No one saw it coming, even though there seemingly was a family history of this. It wasn't until I'm going to say some strange decisions or some strange things started occurring that it was really, okay, hang on, we've got to get this looked at. And for that assessment to be completed, it was quite a lengthy process. So unfortunately, she was declared non-competent and needed to have a power of attorney or someone who is there to sign off and review legal contracts, legal anythings, and to make them fully legally and binding. But capacity can change. So we talked about that particular scenario there. Here and now, I like to think that I running on all cylinders, but maybe in the next 6 months I get a bump on the head or something, something happens and that capacity can change. So, and let's touch wood that doesn't happen. But it can, some unforeseen event. So that capacity can really change. And if there is someone in life that is noticing these things that are very, okay, I'm close now, and then I see those changes, they can often take advantage of that before that full assessment has been completed, because legally up until that assessment, they are deemed mentally capable. So things like that, make a plan. I'm a very big believer in planning. I don't like planning, but I believe in getting the ducks in a row. Whether it's budgeting your finances, or whether it's taking a look at your exit strategy or your legacy planning. Put a plan in place. So I'll go into how we can do that in a few slides' time, or some things to consider if you've not already considered them. Just so that you know. And I'll be going into detail about the difference between a will and a power of attorney and a few other things. So some warning signs, some red flags, some areas that you should just start taking a look at is if there's a trusted person in your life and they start taking a new interest or involvement in your finances. If that's not something that you've discussed ever before, and all of a sudden someone really starts, okay, tell me what's in the will, what's going on, how can I help your finances, can I help you make some more money? If it's that unsolicited approach, I'm not saying it's always with bad intentions. It's just something that's very different, as opposed to, I'm going to say, yourself reaching out to a trusted family member or a trusted person saying, hey, I could really use some help in this. Do you know someone, or can you help me, or whatever the case may be. Likewise, for pressures you to lend or give money. And that is a big one I've been seeing in the industry, specifically in the last 5 or so years, because as more and more cities in Canada become more and more difficult to afford to live in because of housing affordability, often children reach out to the bank of mum and dad, mum or dad, I should say, asking for loans, asking for parents to take out mortgages on their current property to help the kids buy another one. So most lenders in an instance like that would require certain independent legal advice to be provided to make sure there's no coercion, none of that sort of stuff. That being said, not all lenders will. So if that's ever a question as well and you don't feel comfortable about it, know that there is a thing called independent legal advice where you can present to a solicitor the scenario and they will provide you their legal opinion. Does usually cost money, so be cognizant of that too. Or they suggest you change important contracts. So if we look at our registered retirement savings plans vehicles or our registered retirement income fund vehicles, both of those scenarios, you can nominate a beneficiary. And in most cases, the beneficiary that most people nominate is their significant other or their spouse. If they are still with us. If all of a sudden there's an encouragement for that to be changed, an unprompted encouragement, it's definitely something to to keep your eye on there. The reason why most people have nominated their spouse or their partner is for the taxation. So when those funds transfer onto a spouse or a partner, it's not deemed a taxable event. So tax gets deferred in the case of an RSP and a registered retirement income fund until after both spouses pass away, and then the estate deals with it. Sorry, I don't want to get too granular. If I am, I apologize. I just it's also another piece of information that not a lot of people are familiar with. So if they're suggesting all of a sudden, hey, change it from the spouse to an adult child, like, help me understand why that is occurring. Please, like, explain it. Get some a trusted financial partner, a trusted advisor, someone at your financial institution to review that with you. Because someone at arm's length, I should say. I know a lot of us know people that can help us with their finances, whether it's a close friend or a family member. I always err on the side of caution of mixing money and family, because sometimes they get a little bit messy. So again, always suggesting, yep, they might help. That's great. They might give you some guidance or some advice. Never hurts to get a second opinion. Okay. But if that family member is suggesting that change to themselves, well, why? And understanding what could happen in the future by way of taxation and all of these sorts of things, and your legal rights and all of that sort of stuff. So just be cognizant of that. Another warning sign is there are new problems meeting financial obligations. So as Scott mentioned, I've been working with the creative industry for a number of years now, and a lot of members that I speak with, they, things have been moving along. If you're successful, pension's going in, you're spending it, you don't need to really worry about that because it's all sort of happening automatically. But if all of a sudden payments start bouncing, you start getting phone calls from collection agencies and they know your name and details, or things like that, the services start happening, that is definitely another warning sign to take a look at your bank account. And if the best piece of advice I can suggest here is that, I know it's not fun to do, keep an eye on that bank statement that either gets mailed out to you, or if you're comfortable with using online banking and the tools there, just take a look through regularly. I'm in the habit of, particularly with my credit card, just checking off those transactions on a periodic basis, weekly, monthly, whenever, just to make sure that they pass my sniff test. An example of why I do that is that, as I said, we live in Toronto. I haven't really traveled that much lately. And the last time I traveled, we happened to go back to Australia. So to see a transaction on my credit card statement for $1.13 from a parking garage in Texas, that really gave me some red flags, because A, I've never been to Texas. B, I've certainly not parked at a garage in Texas. And C, if you're parking at a garage in Texas, I'm sure it's going to be more than $1.13. So I've reported that immediately. Turns out that it was fraud. Someone had got access to transaction, my account number, or in this case it was my wife's card, but I don't want to point fingers because it's all of ours. And just sent that test. Usually $1.13 wouldn't be known, right? No one would really bat an eyelid at $1.13. If it was $113, different story. Reporting it, got the money straight back because the bank, I'm covered for that sort of stuff. But that was a test transaction. Card got cancelled. Yes, it was a frustration, but it happened. We didn't lose out on anything. So that's where I talk about new problems meeting financial obligations, is especially in modern society, that fraudster could be completely on the other end of the world and somehow got access to personal information through some of the online sources. So just be cognizant of that and keep an eye on those transaction details. So that way you should know everything's going smoothly. Pretty much same example with unfamiliar transactions. I know it's very difficult if when you're going through record keeping, if you go through your record keeping, sometimes places that you purchase your money at, they're called, they operate as one thing and then they're called something else on their merchant terminals. For instance, Nick Eddy Inc. could be an operating name, but my terminal is under Eddy Nick, well, probably not even that, Creative Arts Inc., something like that. Sometimes it's a bit tougher to tally some of these services up, but just keep your eye on them at least so that you can know. And if you see anything on any of your banking accounts or your records, please report it to your financial institution within 30 days. Or the quicker that you report that, the quicker they can take action. And again, if it's a proven fraudulent scenario, you are covered for that. So some other examples of financial abuse: pressure, pressuring you in to do something that you really don't want to do. Hey, I'm struggling right here and now. Can you pay my credit card off in full? Well, maybe, yeah, you can, but there's a lot of pressure involved to do that, and a lot of emotional, I'm not going to call that emotional blackmail, but emotional pressure to have that done and help. And okay, well, if you don't pay my credit card, I can't put food on the table for your grandkids, or something along those lines. So just be cognizant of that. That could be considered as one of two things. It's either financial abuse or a really honorable gesture to help family. Just be mindful of that though, because once that money is paid down off any sort of facility, or usually if you've gifted it to someone, it may never come back. The next option is removal of decision-making power. Removal of the ability to make decisions for one's self. That's a tough pill to swallow. So that's why there is such a lengthy scenario or a lengthy process that that you have to go through the courts, the government, medical professionals, all of those sorts of things before that can happen. I know we've probably all heard of certain scenarios of certain performers or musicians in the industry who have lost their own decision-making power for their financial affairs. Doesn't just happen to seniors; it happens, unfortunately, to everyone. But that could be an example of financial abuse. Removal of control over assets. You may have some money saved away in a term deposit. It's got your name on it. Next thing you know, it's gone because you had it jointly held with a child. Legally, even though the money might have your name on it first, if you've put someone else's name on it as a joint holder, that is then considered legally their money as well. So just be cognizant of that. If they take those funds out and say, well, I've put it in this account for you just to take some of the pressure off you, or this, that, and the other thing. Just make sure that if you are entering into arrangements such as that with family, friends, children, there's a very clear and transparent agreement. Non-repayment of debts. You lend someone some money to help, I don't know, replace the windscreen on a vehicle, or to go onto this trip, or to purchase some recording equipment, or they needed to buy a certain item to help with and there was an expectation of repayment, but all of a sudden you just keep getting the runaround. Sorry, I can't afford it this month, or I'll give it to you next month, or you might get a small amount, just enough to calm things down. Just that's another option, another example. Sorry. Invasion of privacy, or privacy, depending on how you pronounce it. That is another scenario. Hey, you give me your bank account statements. I want to review. I want to make sure no one's taking advantage of you. Sounds like they may have good intentions, but if it's not something you're comfortable with, then there's that insistence. No, you've got to show me. You've got to tell me. That could be considered as financial abuse as well. Now, some of these scenarios I've gone worst case scenario. if we flip that coin, some of these things could also be family just trying to help, just trying to support, just trying to make your life that little bit easier. So just saying, be cognizant, know who is asking, why they're asking, and all of that. So some tips to prevent financial abuse. It doesn't stop on its own. There's no way if someone has been able to take advantage of you, they won't stop. They'll keep trying. Let's just say it's a $50 here. Next thing you know, it's $500. I hear these scams. We call them romance scams, where someone who's lonely has met someone online willing to do this, that, and the other thing, and they've kindled up a relationship. And sometimes it could be a short, quick scenario. Sometimes it could take years for it to play out. All of a sudden that person needs money to help because, or they want to come and, if they live in another country and they want to meet, but can't afford to make the trip. That scenario I've seen many times, and most financial institutions, I'd like to say all, but I can't comment for all, we all go through regular training. We have quarterly, monthly training on what to look for in some of those scenarios. Be wary of email requests that ask for banking and personal information. So I don't know how many of you, if you have a cell phone, have received a text message recently from your bank or credit union stating that you've been locked out and you have to click here to unlock it. Don't ever, your financial institution will never, ever they will send you a link. They'll say, your account's been locked, please call us. They won't even give you a number. They just, please call us, because the expectation is you'll have to look up the number or you have it from a trusted source. The other scenario I see a lot is when it's called cell phones or phone number spoofing. The number showing up on your phone shows from a financial institution that you're familiar with, but it turns out it could be a call center located overseas. That's called phone number spoofing, and usually the dead giveaway is when there's a significant pause before the caller answers because you've been robo-dialed, and you can hear a significant amount of noise in the background, like it's from a call center. Now, for those who regularly call centers, sometimes they are a bit noisier, others are not. But for me, it's that unsolicited phone call, typically, and then there's that followed by the pause. Same rings true for all those people trying to call and clean your ducts or to offer you a service that you don't need. Maybe they're trying to encourage you to change internet providers. For me, if I want a service, I'm going to go looking for it. If you do happen to get into a conversation with these people, that's fine. Just do not share any information with them. Like, ask them to send you some details. Okay, sure. What email address? Well, if you're calling from Rogers or from, Bell or whomever, you should have my contact details on your file anyway. You've called me, so you should have the rest of my contact details if I legitimately have an account with you. So send it to me. I had that scenario with a gentleman once before. Called, the deal sounded too good to be true. I said, okay, that's great. I want to think about it. Please email me what you're proposing. Because I also know that, say, Rogers, they can send you certain quotes or estimates and things on what that proposal is so that you can review along with the terms and conditions. Email it to me. Yep. Guy goes, sure, no problems. I never saw that email. Never, ever had that call either again. So just be wary of any unsolicited phone or email requests that ask for banking or personal information. Your bank will ask you for a social insurance number bank or credit union, I should say, when you join. They need to obtain that for any accounts that earn interest. So that one's plausible. But if you've got someone else asking you for social insurance number, no, that's not something you're going to give. Financial institutions will ask for certain specific information on a social insurance number to help identify you. So one scenario we'll ask for, and it's usually when you've called in to us and we don't know who you are, is, okay, can you please tell me the last 3 digits and the last 3 digits only of your social insurance number? Because the rest of it's usually crossed out or hashed out. Not the whole thing. If anything smells a little either too good to be true or smells a bit fishy, just go with your gut. Maybe it's on the up and up, but you also never know. So just reach out to a trusted source, go into a branch, speak with someone face to face. The next tip is to read contracts carefully and consult a lawyer. So full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer. That being said, know your rights in the province that you live in for what constitutes a legally binding contract. In Ontario, verbal contracts can also be considered as legally binding contracts. So if I say to you, hey, I'm going to give you $500, you're going to give me back X amount in so many days' time, that could be considered as a legally binding contract. That being said, unless that conversation is recorded, it becomes a he said, she said, or she said, he said, whichever scenario you want to use. If you can, all contracts should be in written format, and they should be written in plain, easy to understand language. If not, that's why you consult with a lawyer. If there's any contracts of employment or contracts for work to be completed around the house, or make sure that you have someone who is familiar with that sort of document, review that. And many financial institutions offer services that allows you to consult with them. We do offer a product that has a legal consultation benefit attached and associated with it, but take a look at your financial institution as well to see what they have to offer. Next one is keep in touch with friends and family. Knowing what's going on. Life, everything is changing. The pandemic happened, which obviously we've all had tough times navigating. But since the pandemic, online, virtual, well, these fraudsters, they have become a lot more creative, a lot more resilient, they have a lot of other different tips and tactics, because people went from going into the bank to do lots of things to let's phone in, or let's have this conversation, or everything has become so more disconnected, disjointed with that. So make sure you keep in touch with your friends and family, and anything that using Scott's scenario again. Okay, fortunately, nothing happened in that particular scenario, but one of my colleagues' mothers actually fell for that scam. She'd gone so far as going to the bank to withdraw the money, and fortunately, the bank that she went into, the person on the front line clocked it. Like, hang on, that does not sound legitimate. That sounds like it's a case of fraud. Don't do it. She was that scared because wanting to support the grandchild and everything. And these fraudsters saying, don't call mum. I don't want mum to know. Like, please don't call mum. I don't want to get in trouble. This is between us. Fortunately, she did call the child's mum, who is my colleague, and she's like, no, that's absolutely a clear-cut case of elder fraud in this situation. So she was lucky, but she'd already been to withdraw the money. So they also knew, as I was saying, they have an Italian background. The caller put on an Italian accent, referred to as Nona, knew her name. So they'd been doing that research as well. So be cognizant on that. And don't become isolated. All right. I'm a big believer in it takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to support everyone in it. So, don't become isolated, keep in touch. And if you need support, reach out to your financial partner or your financial institution and just seek their guidance first. Okay, so what can you do? You can get legal advice. Obviously, that's sometimes costly, sometimes could be very costly. But at the same time, is that small upfront cost going to save a lot in the back end? Quite possibly. Okay, and that's what lawyers, I say most lawyers, are there to provide you with that legal advice, that legal opinion. Say, okay, yes, this is a good contract. No, this is not. All of those sorts of scenarios. You could also possibly get an order to freeze assets. So that's a whole legal process. It's cumbersome. It's expensive. It's also, if that's to do with family, that's going to step on a few toes. And then you can try and get the assets back. So if you have been a victim of whether it's a wire fraud or an e-transfer fraud or something along those lines, you can always try and get them back. Unfortunately, it's not always guaranteed. Can be costly, can be time consuming. All right. Now, just before I start on the next section, I see a question in the chat here. So the question is, would you allow one financial institution to look at your investments at another financial institution? Offered that he can help me consolidate all of my RSPs and investments into one account, and the meeting is tomorrow. So that's really, would you allow it? That's entirely up to you. To me, banking is a relationship. It's a two-way relationship. It's not all about the person that's offering to review your investments in another financial institution. Well, I mean, it is. And maybe that person reviewing them could save you some money. It could make you some more money. It could help as well. That being said, it's up to, I guess, do you have a relationship or a trust with that person that's reviewing them? We do that a lot. We review investments at other financial institutions a lot for some key reasons. Can we make our members some more money? Can we save our members some time? Can we help? Again, I'm trying to stay away from going too granular, but can we help provide advice on that portfolio to see if it still meets the needs of the member, or if there is some duplication in the investments? So yeah, it is usual. It's hard to provide good, clear guidance without being able to see what you're looking at on the other side. That being said, it could also be considered as a sales tactic to try and bring that money over. So just be cognizant of that. If the fees are cheaper, that's great. If the rate of return could be higher, that's great. It's really going to come down to the relationship that you have. And I keep using the word trusted financial partner, not a banker, not a sales advisor. It's a partnership. Though that's the way that we look at it anyway. It's not all about us. It's not all about you. It's about how can we work together to help, well, from my perspective, help our members. And then conversely, our members are helping us grow as a cooperative institution. So yeah, I would, and I have allowed my own wealth advisor to do that. And she proved to me where she could make me some more money and how that portfolio could change and how we could minimize some fees. Well, that was down to, to that relationship. That wasn't something that someone picked up the phone and called me and said, hey, come in, I want to review your statements. But at the same time, like I said before, you always have choice. You always have a right to say no. Even when there's a hard sale that's being pushed onto you, say no. I want to think about it. Escalate it if you feel it's something that's becoming a pushy sales approach. Let's talk to a manager. All of those sorts of things. Consolidating all of your RSPs and investments into one account, though, I see it as beneficial for a couple of reasons. One, for the future, for estate planning, for legacy, for the estate, everything is going to be in one place, and it's going to be a lot smoother for that process. But conversely, if you have multiple investments at multiple financial institutions, you're paying multiple fees. You also have to keep your eye on multiple sets of paperwork. So consolidating them does definitely make sense. I'm just saying, make sure you have that good, trusted two-way relationship. And if you don't have it now, can that be built? Is that something that you can work together, or do you start small and grow it over time? Those sorts of things. Okay, so the next bit, some advanced planning tools. So a couple of tools that are used in, well, we call it advanced planning. I prefer to call it legacy planning, estate planning, if you wanted to go there. There are two main legal documents, and I want to explain the difference between the two because this is something that is always confused. And then there's that joint account we spoke of earlier. So first document is a will. For those in the audience that have not set up or reviewed their will in recent times, this is your my ask of you. Take a look at that. A will, it is your wishes. It's your legal wishes to what happens to your estate, your assets, everything that you have accumulated throughout life, and who gets what, and to also make sure that everything goes according to your wishes. If you die without a will, you're deemed to have died intestate, which means you don't have a will, and then everything is split up according to the court of law. You know, your wishes may not, well, there aren't legal wishes. You may have had a verbal wish. You know, I want such and such to get my coin collection. Typically, the courts will have to ask for evidence and proof of that. So just make sure that if you haven't got a will, even if you don't go through the whole full legal will process with a solicitor, and I don't recommend the ones that you can pick up at the post offices, or some of those you can actually find online nowadays. Something, you know, date it, put your name on it. You know, this is hereby, you know, make it look like at least there's something that you've got some wishes on. But I do strongly encourage a will. And if you haven't looked at it for a period of time, sometimes I've seen wills in the industry where they've been 20, 30 years old. A lot changes in 20 or 30 years. So just make sure you review it periodically. Only make those changes to your will after careful thought. Don't have some person who is close to you trying to encourage you to do this, that, or the other thing. You know, make sure you work with a lawyer and you work independently with a lawyer. So a will is it only comes into effect when you have passed away. When you are no longer with us, that is when your will actually takes effect. Up until then, we call a document that is very similar a power of attorney. So a power of attorney, we'll call it, like, just to keep the terminology similar, that is your living will. That is, you know, you've given legal authority to another person to make decisions on your behalf while you are still living and have mental capacity to do so. Unfortunately, we see a lot in the industry where there is a loved one lying in a hospital room, unable to communicate, non-communicative, you know, likely not going to be around a lot longer. And, you know, the family is frantically rushing to get a power of attorney settled. That is going to be very difficult. So if you are thinking or leaning towards creating a power of attorney, please do so now whilst you can. It doesn't take long. I think I recall when I went through my will and power of attorney a little while ago, the interview with the lawyer took maybe an hour and a half. He drafted up a document. We went back, reviewed it all. Yep, that's good. Signed off on it. So it's not a significant investment in time, but it would save a significant amount of frustration or heartache on both parties. Now, there are two types of powers of attorney. The first one is a power of attorney general. So this provides the person that you are giving these powers to deal with financial or legal matters. You know, can that person sell a property on your behalf? Can that person make investment decisions with your financial institution on your behalf? Can that person sign checks to pay for assisted housing on your behalf from your account? So that is what that general power of attorney will do. but it will not allow them to make decisions on health or other personal care matters. It allows the donor to do anything. The donor, sorry, being the person who is allowed that power to do anything with any property listed in that general power of attorney. So as you can see, it's like basically you've given someone the legal right to make decisions for you. They could sell the property you're living in. Once it's activated, they could sell it. Next thing you know, you're being asked to move out. So when you are working on a power of attorney, make sure the person that you're donating your legal powers to, definitely someone who's trusted. And I may even suggest considering a guardian or a lawyer or someone legal that would do that for you. Now, again, that's slightly more expensive than having a close trusted partner. Now, the other converse is like if you're in a significant relationship, you have a spouse or a partner, usually most things are going to be jointly held anyway, but some things aren't. I have a power of attorney general in Australia still. So if anything, I still have some accumulated assets over there. My parents have power of attorney to act on my behalf to resolve those things. So just consider that. A general power of attorney allows your attorney to look after your affairs if you're away temporarily or you need help managing your affairs. We're going to move into the next section in a minute, but that's an enduring power of attorney. So an enduring power of attorney allows your attorney to continue looking after your property if you lose your mental capacity. So the big difference here, is that a general power of attorney ceases when your mental capacity has been judged, ordered, whatever the term I'm looking for is, to have diminished to an extent that you can no longer make decisions for yourself. So that general power of attorney will no longer be around. The other option is the enduring power of attorney. So the enduring power of attorney has all of the same legal powers as previous. However, that will still continue in the event that mental acuity has diminished. So some advantages and suggestions here is it's simple to write a power of attorney. It's easy to appoint and change a power of attorney. It's just going to the solicitor, going to the person who created it for you, and changing it. Maybe you've had a falling out with the original person. Change it. Maybe the spouse has predeceased you. You can change it to someone else. It's also relatively expensive to set up. And there is an option for conditional effect. So what do I mean by conditional effect? Maybe there has to be a triggering event for this power of attorney to take place. I'll give you a scenario here, is that one of the members that I've worked with in the past, I knew her personally. We'd known each other for a few years from a banking relationship. And then unfortunately her husband passed away. And maybe fast forward a year or two after her husband passed, she really started spiraling when it came to mental health, to I don't know, the scenario that she was working through. And one thing that she said to me, I guess in a time where I would say she was lucid, was, I do not want my son to ever have access to my banking information. Okay, that's a pretty clear cut. Yep, this is. Fast forward 6 months, and all of a sudden the son shows up with a power of attorney. Here you go. Here's a power of attorney that my mum has signed many, many years ago that I'd like to, implement. So knowing the conversation I'd had with the mother previously, and knowing this conversation now, I actually reached out to the solicitor and said, hey, as I said, I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand legalese or whatever language you want to call that. I asked the lawyer to confirm what the intention of one particular clause in that power of attorney was, and the lawyer basically said, this power of attorney does not become effective until the person, the mother, has been declared mentally incompetent. So unless she's been declared mentally incompetent by a professional and you have confirmation of that, there's nothing. This is not a legal document. So you can build those certain conditional scenarios into a power of attorney. For suggestions, have the document held in safekeeping. Does the solicitor offer to keep it on file for you, or know where it is, or do you have not many people have safety deposit boxes anymore, or do you have somewhere where you can store that sort of document, so that it's kind of not on one's home? It's always good to have a backup on one's home, but there is an additional document somewhere. Another suggestion is that there are two ways to approach a power of attorney. Power of attorney can be either jointly or jointly and severally. One of them jointly means both people that you have named as attorneys on that, they both have to agree and therefore instruct. Jointly and severally means they both can do it jointly or they can do it as individuals. So, if you're unsure of what's going to go on, or you've got people in your family, you might trust one, the other you want to be able to show good faith in, you consider that scenario as well. And I've already talked about appointing a corporate party. There are companies out there that administer and operate the powers of attorney. So who to give those to? And I'm just cognizant of time and the slides that I've got left. So, if you're giving someone your legal rights, make sure that they understand and respect your values and your wishes. We talked about a power of attorney general and a power of attorney enduring. There is another power of attorney, which is the power of attorney for health. That's the vernacular used is the plug puller power. When you see that on all the shows where that person has to make that unfortunate decision. So understand the wishes, non-resuscitation or resuscitate at all costs, whichever one that is there. But make sure your power of attorney is someone you've spoken with about this, someone who understands clearly what your wishes are. Understand and respect their duties as an attorney, not to take advantage of, not to do anything nefarious. They are there to assist, and that's their duty. Someone who's good with details and record keeping. A power of attorney should, by all rights, every time they do something on the donor's behalf, should keep a record of it. If you've got a child that's made an investment instruction with your financial institution, there should be a record of that, or all of those sorts of things, just in case there is ever a situation where it's challenged. Should also be someone that you trust to make good decisions, not those on the opposite scale. So what if you don't have one? The provinces have a public trustee, and they will appoint an agent for you. There are costs associated with that, and that's usually a percentage of the scenario, but there are costs associated with that. The public trustee is acting on your behalf, but they have knowledge and experience in doing this. Family members may apply, but there is a fee. Now, lastly, joint bank accounts. So joint bank accounts are another tool that is used to help minimize the potential for inheritance tax or estate tax or probate. Why? Because most bank accounts all have we call it the right of survivorship. So if you have a joint account held with someone and one party passes away, the other party inherits all of those assets. And they can be a great tool to minimize to minimize probate taxes, to minimize fees when the eventuality does happen. Just be cognizant of that. If you are considering adding a family member or loved one onto your bank account, is that both parties, even though that may be your hard-earned in there that you've accumulated for the last 20, 30, 40 years, as soon as you add a joint party to that account, that also becomes their funds and they can use and legally withdraw at any stage. Unless, of course, you have the account set up as a two-signer account, but that causes more problems than it actually solves. So just be cognizant of that. You can place restrictions in place. Like I said, 2 people must sign on that. But that does cause some difficulties. I mean, it could also be some benefit. When it comes to allowing someone to assist you in paying your bills, yeah, a joint bank account definitely does help with that. It does. They have the same legal rights. They can call into your financial institution to pay bills. They can get access to accounts online, all of those sorts of things. But we don't recommend it as a way to avoid probate fees. Sorry. The reason why is any assets held in a joint bank account can actually be deemed as assets in the event of a family law scenario. So if there is if you're putting a child on that and that child is going through a separation or divorce, the assets that their name is on, even though they may be, yours that you've accumulated for 20, 30, 40 years, they could be, and usually are, added into the pot for when all of that process takes place. So be very cognizant of that, especially in a scenario where, love to be able to say everyone gets along with their son or daughter-in-law or whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, it's not always the case. There are other ways to avoid probate fees whilst retaining your legal right to your funds. Couple of very easy scenarios to explore are any registered accounts, whether it's a registered retirement savings plan, or if it's a registered retirement income fund, or a tax-free savings account. All of those registered products allow you to nominate a direct beneficiary. So if you have more questions about that, I know that's another topic for another day that we can talk about, Scott, but there's some scenarios to speak with your trusted financial partner about, because you can then nominate directly any beneficiaries that you want, and it doesn't go into the estate pot. So just some resources that we've prepared for you to you can look into. The big one here is, you've got the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, but the one that I use a lot is the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. So the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is where all the new tips, tricks, tactics that fraudsters are using are usually published, and usually published pretty quick. And there is a book that they can send you out. It used to be called the Little Black Book of Scams. Now it's more of a big purple book of scams, but you can get access to that, either download it or to ask them to mail you out a copy, as well as most financial institutions usually get a small supply of that stock on site. So maybe go and ask your bank or credit union if they have, or again, if they can print. So regardless of what financial institution you do your business with, no one wants to see anything nefarious happen to you. So I would struggle to say that someone will say, no, I'm not going to help you get that little black book of scams or whatever the case may be, if they can then help protect your funds. That being said, I also don't want to speak on behalf of everyone. Again, I know that's something that our First Ontario branches in the Hamilton Niagara region offer. Creative Arts is set up more virtually, so we have digital versions of that. There is the federal, provincial, or territorial ministers responsible for Seniors Forum. The link is there. And then there's the Speak Up Advanced Planning Campaign as well. So take a look at all of those sites, should you wish. I know it's hard to click. You'll be able to click on the links in the PDF I've sent out, or copy and paste them in. Okay, so what we've covered today, some definitions of financial abuse, some strategies for prevention, some advanced planning tools, the will, power of attorney, and there's a few other things. So I've got some time for questions, unless Scott gives me the big hook from left stage. If anyone has any, I'd like to drop it in the Q&A.
I would never give you the hook, Nick. You've been brilliant. Thank you so much for this. And
Thank you,
we
Scott.
don't seem to have any questions. So last chance for anybody to raise a question in the Q&A box.
Let me
I
just
think,
put my contact details up again too. Sorry, Scott, because I didn't get to
sure.
that slide. In case
Yeah.
anyone has any questions that once we've all hung up the call, anything pops into your mind, please reach out. Send me an email or give us a call. Sorry, Scott.
Not at all. Oh, there's one question in the Q&A box. And a good one it is. What can you do about an executor going rogue?
Okay. I'm assuming based on that, Nikita, that you're not the party that estate is being executed on, because you're still here asking that question. I would seek legal advice on that. If you have strong evidence to think that the executor's gone rogue, it's against the wishes of the deceased, and that there's something that's being taken advantage of, consult a lawyer. Executors they are a legal entity when it comes to distributing the estate. Executors must keep track of all money coming in, all money going out, what's going on there. Because of that very reason, they can be challenged legally. So I would consult with an independent lawyer, provide some scenarios, what's going on. Again, there would likely be a cost involved in that, but is that cost up front going to help in the long run? So I hope that answers that. Alter ego trust. Sorry, Carol, I don't know if I understand what an alter ego trust is. Do you mean like that's held under another, call it legal entity, whether it's a holding corporation or something else? I'll come back to that one then.
Yeah, I was just going to say, why don't we go on to Tisha's question?
Tisha. So the question from Tisha is: the power of attorney for the bank different from the power of attorney general? Yes and no is the answer on that, Trisha. Is that some banks, some financial institutions have their own power of attorney that you can sign directly with them. That allows the donor and the attorney to only conduct financial matters at that particular bank. So it's only like, if you had that with us, that would only work with our relationship. The power of attorney general is a legal document, and that can be executed anywhere. So it is also more favorably thought of than that power of attorney you have with your bank. If there was a challenge, if there was something going on, anything drawn up by a legal professional carries more weight than something that a financial institution has got. The one with the financial institution, though, is typically easier to implement. Most banks, credit unions, they'll require both the donor and the attorney to present physically in the branch. Usually, the person who's donating that authority has to meet with the bank manager. They have to sit down, have a conversation. Now, if that bank manager has any cause to suspect there is any leading going on here or any arm twisting, they might quite easily decline that because it may appear too risky. So conversely, if it's gone through a lawyer, if it's been drawn up by a lawyer, the lawyer takes on all of that. They've done all of that process, and it can be used at multiple financial institutions. So you don't have to go into however. So I hope that answers that one.
We haven't heard back from Carol, and Tisha says thank you. So I think you did answer her question nicely. Let's go on to Bonnie's question. Can you see that?
What is the fiduciary responsibility to execute an entire contract when prepayment has been demanded? Is this an abuse if the contractor goes out of business without executing? So Bonnie, I'm going to I'm going to say that might be a question for a legal professional. If you're talking about a contractor, are we talking about like someone who is building a home or renovating there? Yeah, I mean, if they've gone out of business, there may not be a lot of legal repercussions. Contractors typically don't have a fiduciary responsibility. I know, if you're in the financial services industry, what fiduciary responsibility means is that we have a responsibility to provide you with good guidance, good information, not take advantage of you, not act in bad faith. I'd love to be able to say all industries have that same sort of responsibility, but they do not. I've heard so many horror stories where, a contractor has gone out of business once they've taken deposit and then just disappeared and not done the work. So, usually either that ends up in small claims court or there's a case if that contractor is seen to be doing this in multiple areas. So I'm going to defer probably the better answer to that one might be to speak with a legal professional. If you are in the province of Ontario, I know you can reach out to the Upper Canada Law Society, and they have a consultation service where you can connect with a legal professional pro bono. It's part of what they do. It's a short, maybe 10, 15-minute consultation, and they'll either say, here's the answer to your very straightforward legal question, or we're going to refer you on to someone who should look into this more for you. If you're not in the province of Ontario, I believe they may have similar things in the other provinces, but I'm not familiar with that. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most legal societies in most provinces, if not all of them, have some sort of pro bono call-in service like that, Nick. Okay. Haven't heard back from Carol with clarification, so I think, Carol says found the answer online. So
okay. Power of online, power of Google.
Yes. Question answered, question solved. So if I can ask you to unshare your screen, Nick, because I think we're done now. And I want to thank you so much for this. This has been great. I know I learned a lot, and I thought I knew a lot, but clearly not. So thank you for your expertise, Nick, and we'll have to talk more about the other issue that you mentioned. I want to thank our series sponsor, TELUS, and mostly thank you for being here today. Without you, this whole thing would have been pointless. I do want to mention, you've probably seen the third name on our screen list, and that's Cody Rooney. Cody is a student who's going to be with us for the summer. So you may see his name pop up on other things as well. So thank you, everybody. I'll be posting a video of this webinar on our website probably in a day or two. So if you missed a few things, you can come back and grab them. And Nick's slides will be there as well. All of our webinars, in fact, including the most recent one, Creating with Canva, along with Public Relations, Art and Neuroscience, Preserving the Mind, Copyright, Social Media, Artistic Legacy Preparation, Wellness in Winter, and Identity Theft and Fraud Prevention, which Nick also hosted, are all available on our website, which is canartnet.ca. You can also register on our website now for the next two webinars in our series. One of them is Zooming on Zoom, getting the most out of this platform. It has changed and evolved over the years, ever since most of us jumped online because of COVID. We'll be doing that on August the 13th with our resident CAN community member and resident techie, Leah Murray. And then Leah will be back on September 12th with a webinar on video production, how to use a free online app to create videos for your website, your social media, and self-tapes. That's coming up September 12th. You can register for both of those now. Until we meet again, take care, be well, and have a creative day.